Hey guys, Riley the Car Guy here, and today we are going to be doing the rear brakes on the Xterra. Now I decided to do the full kit, and if you also want to do the full replacement, here's what you're going to need to buy. You'll need the drum and disc combo. You'll need shoes for the parking brake. You'll need brake pads for obviously the disc. You'll need brake grease, brake cleaner, and a brake hardware kit for those shoes. It's likely that when you take the shoes off, you will not be able to reuse the hardware. So you want to just get a new kit, good peace of mind, you don't have to run to the store. Okay, now to get started, we're going to go ahead and take off the brake pads first. And you do that by just removing these two bolts on the rear of the caliper. And these are 14 millimeter. So you just want to loosen those. See if we can, okay. Now, if you haven't worked on your brakes in quite some time, they will likely be stuck, these bolts. So just get a dead blow and loosen them up. There we go. There's that one. And I'll do the same down here. All right. And now they should just come out with your fingers. And now when you take the caliper out, have a place to set it. Now in the rear it's kind of nice because you can just set it right on your leaf spring. So set it on the leaf spring. Make sure it doesn't fall because this is where your brake fluid comes into the caliper and runs this little piston here. So definitely just make sure that it's in a safe place, it's not going to fall and put any tension on that line. Set the bolts aside and your pad should just basically pop right out. All right, there's the front, here's the rear. Now notice I'm not being too gentle because I'm not really concerned about the health of this rotor because this rotor is just going to get recycled. I'm going to get rid of this one and put a whole new one on. Now next are these two bolts kind of on the inside of the rotor, on the inside of the caliper, and you just want to loosen those and that's going to remove the whole bracket. This is a 19 millimeter. Okay, now see how this bracket's loosening? Now at this point, once we start taking the disc / drum off and this bracket, just go make sure that your parking brake is not on. You know, put the car in gear so it's not moving around, but definitely take the parking brake off so you can make sure that you can get this rotor off once you're ready. All right, so once that's off, you'll be able to pull off the whole disc assembly. Now, it's probably going to be on pretty tight, and especially if you have some adjustment issues on your parking brake. But if you just give it a few good taps, it should start to come off. Another note is this outside rim here, that's actually a guard. That is not attached to the rotor. See how that's not attached? So definitely don't pull on that if you're trying to get the disc off. There we go. So we tapped it enough. Now we can slide it off. All right. So now we've exposed the shoes. So here's your brake shoe, your top and your bottom, and then obviously your hub and all that in here. But now what we want to do is start removing the shoes. But before we do that, what you'll want to do is take a picture. Take a picture of this side, take a picture of this side, take all the angles that you can, because if you take them apart, you forget how they went back on, you're going to have some trouble. And that's also another argument as to why you complete an entire job on one side of the truck at a time. So that way, if all else fails, then you can go to the other side of the car and see how it's configured, without taking anything apart. So I'm going to take a few photos just for reference, and then we're going to keep pulling it apart. So we're going to take the right side off first, which is where you have your adjuster and you have a tension pin. So you can take the spring off just by getting a needle nose pliers in there, pulling up, and taking that out, really easy there. And then your adjuster should come apart if you just pull them apart with your hands. Okay, there you go. That should come off too. There you go. So there's your adjuster. Set that aside. I don't know if my kit has one, so you'll want to be careful with that. And then let's move to the other side and take that off. Now the other side is similar. You have another spring, so let's just start with that. Very good. See, that's kind of a little double spring there. And then you have like a pin retainer. So I'm gonna leave that be for now, and I'm gonna see if I can get away with just leaving that there. This is the actual mechanism that that expands your brakes, right? It pushes these shoes into the inside of the drum, and that's how it stops, or excuse me, how it holds the car, I guess. But you have two little pins with springs, so they're under tension, that hold the shoes in. So we're gonna turn those and pop them out. So let's turn that. All right, good, and the shoe comes right out. So this little pin, this is just like a little T, and effectively it slides in to this hole and turns. So just set those aside as well. Do the same on the bottom. All right. And now you have your bottom and top shoe off, and well, they look like they certainly need to get fixed, so that's good. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go and prep all of our new brake parts. So we need to clean our new disc and drum, we need to get these out, and we need to get the brake pads ready as well. So let's go do that. We'll come back and we will reassemble. So the rotor and drum combo is going to look pretty clean when you first take it out of its packaging, but they almost always put like a waxy coating on it to keep it from corroding during shipment and storage. So you still need to clean both of these. So all you need is just take your brake cleaner and just spray it down. So I'm going to put it in here, kind of just so it catches everything, and you effectively just spray it all down. Now do this with both, since you're gonna have to install both anyways. Clean them ahead of time and then you're ready. Alright, so the reassembly is effectively the inverse of the disassembly, but there's a few steps we want to take to kind of prevent squeaking and just kind of have the best experience that we can. Now, I set aside all my hardware, and you know, you're not really going to mistake it with the old stuff. The old stuff's pretty cruddy, and each one of these is color coded. So really I just went through, I matched the springs to the correct springs. You know, I took these out. These are the new ones. Here's the old ones. Basically just matched them and made sure that you know, they were the correct sizes, and then set those aside. And now we're going to go back to assembling. Also in that little kit, that hardware kit, came some grease. And this grease is effectively for spots where the actual brake shoe rubs against this guard. And so just kind of go around, put a little bit of grease on each spot where the shoe obviously touches that guard. You can see the spots because they're worn down. So you just want to put some grease in there. It just helps with noise. So a little bit there, a little bit more up here. There we go. And there should be a few down here. Now, once you've done this, make sure your hands are very clean. I'm probably going to go switch gloves, but you know, if you don't, just make sure you wipe off your hands really, really well, because the last thing you want is lithium grease on your brake shoes or brake pads. Next, take one of your new pins and slide your little spring holder over top of it, and we're going to install the top shoe. Now, the top shoe is effectively the same as the bottom shoe. I mean, they're the exact same part, but what's important is that you have two little notches here. You have one small and one big. The big notches are going to go where your adjuster sits. So in this case, on the right. So just take your pin, guide it into place, And then we just want to push that pin into place. Now once the shoe is in place, you'll see it kind of seats where it needs to seat. And this will be tough to turn. So once it's in place, you want to make sure that pin's in and then turn it so that way the flat piece kind of fans and then it holds that shoe in place. It's kind of tough to show. I had to get over top and take a look at it, but once you get it in, you'll kind of see if you just push with your tool, you'll see it pop out of the back, and then you can kind of guide it into the hole and turn it so it holds it in place. Now, we effectively just want to do the exact same thing on the bottom, and then we're going to install the springs and the tensioner. Now, on the right-hand side of the truck, which is the side that we're on, you want to make sure that when you rotate the expander in this direction, that the expander expands. All right. So if you're looking down, it's like a clockwise direction. You want it expanding. So just put that back down to its lowest setting and put everything in place, which is effectively the bottom half. This splits into pieces. This bottom half you can just rest right on here. Put this in and pop them into place. There we go. So now our adjuster is there. So now all we need to do for the shoes is to put the springs back in. So the solid side of the spring, all right, or excuse me, the spring that isn't split into two goes on the right. And again, you just do this with your needle nose pliers. So we'll just grab a chunk of the spring, get it in the hole down here first, and then pull up until we can make it reach the other one. Perfect. Okay. So now, make sure the spring is fully seated in, so this little bar needs to sit against the shoe so you know that the back end is hooked all the way around the shoe. You just want to effectively make sure so it doesn't pop out while you're driving, and then you'll kind of have a mess on your hands. So let that sit there, and then grab your other one and do the other side. Now again, what's significant about this other side is you want to make sure that your expander is seated in those little grooves. And this actually has to go on the inside, so to the right of that mechanism. So I'm going to drop that into place. Just grab that little hole. All right. And then pull up. All right. All right, there we go. So now we have that spring in as well. Just want to make sure that's in there tight on both ends. All right. So now everything feels nice and tight. Perfect. Now next you'll want to grab your disc and make sure that everything fits over. Okay, looks good. So what you're going to want to do is you want to go through the adjustment process on your brakes. Once you get it installed, you don't really necessarily have to do it right this instant. But before you put the wheel and tire back on, you'll want to go through and get that adjusted. So you can click the link and go look at the adjustment video and look at it that way. But I'm not going to show it on this video. Okay, so at this point, we want to get our brake pads out and get them adjusted and ready to go, and then we're going to go ahead and install them. Now, the only prep work we're really going to have to do for the pads is reassemble the hardware. So when you bought the pads, you should have come with little hardware like this that snaps onto this bracket, and it really only goes on one way. You can see it go in. So you just kind of push those in place. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to install the pads by just pushing them in, and it uses tension to hold them in. And in this case, they're the same on both sides again. Your original hardware probably had one that looked a little different. If so, it's probably not the end of the world. I would rather use the brackets that were designed with the pads than the original hardware, because they could be different. So just use those, push them in place, and we are ready to reinstall this back onto our disc, our whole assembly. And so just grab those, slide them into place, and then grab the bolts that we had removed originally. All right, and tighten them down. So next we're going to install the brake pads. Now the brake pads are actually really easy to install, and all four of them are the same except for one little thing, and that's this little clip that looks like it's been riveted on here, and that is the warning pin. So I'm going to put that behind on the rear on this side. Really doesn't matter what side you put it on, but I do like to put it on the inside. So I'm going to just push these in, and I'll show you on the front. It's really simple. You have these little pressure pins here that kind of hold everything in place. You just take these little knobs, push them in. There's one. There's the other. All right, that's it. Just push them in place. And that's going to be the simplest thing, really, is making sure that you put these in place first and make sure they're kind of tucked up inside of those grooves so you're not struggling to get those pads in. But this side is the exact same as that side. So just push them in, and then you're ready for the caliper to go on. Now the caliper requires some kind of special care here. Now the pads you took off are going to be smaller than the pads you're putting on. So what you need to do is grab a C-clamp like this, and you want to put it on your caliper and push the cylinder back in to accommodate the new size. Now what you need to do as well is go underneath your hood and take off the cap to your brake fluid, because it's going to expand, right? You're pushing fluid back into the reservoir. Now you just want to be really careful. Don't push this in too far. First of all, you don't want to mess with any seals, and secondly, you don't want to be spilling brake fluid into the engine bay. So very careful with this. So here's this. Now I'm putting it on the back below where the brake line comes in. So I'm just going to push that a little bit. Make sure that you're not putting any pressure on this or hitting any of the seals. So you just want to slowly push that cylinder back in. All right, now let's see if that'll fit. Really close. So you just want to keep going on it until it fits. If you end up going in really far, go check on your brake cylinder, or excuse me, your brake reservoir, and make sure that you're not spilling fluid in the inside of your engine bay. Okay, this should be good. Yeah, there we go. So now it fits. So what you're going to want to do now is just grab a little bit of caliper grease and grease the spots where the brake pads are going to be touching the caliper. All right, so I just did a little bit on the cylinder and on both these little claws here that hold the other one in place. So I'm going to push that on. Once you have the caliper on, just torque down the other two bolts in the rear to spec. All right, that's it. If you need to adjust your parking brake, you can do that at this point, and then you reassemble your wheel and tire, put everything back on, lower the truck, and you're ready to rock. So thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely put them in the comments below. And one side note, please responsibly dispose of your brakes. A lot of this stuff is pretty toxic. It's not really good for the environment. So if you could recycle or dispose of in a proper way, I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.